We are live.
So Alabama is in. Notre Dame left out. Miami in. BYU left out. This was a very exciting rankings reaction to go with this Saturday morning live here in the Angel Share Garage Bar. We're actually it's afternoon now, 12:30. We watched the rankings just like y'all did and was surprised at a lot of the outcomes. A couple of the leaks I saw online did not come out to be true. But it seems like they did not penalize the teams that played in the conference championship games yesterday, barring except for BYU. That was penalized, and I think it's a lot to do. We'll go into a little further detail on that. But first, this is Off the Bench live here in North Alabama. This is definitely one playoff ranking show reactions to go in the books.
Well, I mean, no matter the outcome after yesterday's dismal performance by Alabama, we said we were going to do this show. Yeah. And I tell you what, we're sitting on the couch earlier in the living room, just like everybody else. First of all, we're fans. I don't think there's any question about it, right? We're fans of our team. We live in Alabama. We bleed Roll Tide, but when we saw Bama staying at number 9, I was a little surprised. I looked at Kels and said, man, they ignored the conference championship games yesterday. But they did ignore them altogether. There's no question about that. Indiana.
Yeah.
We called it. We said SIG over Ohio State yesterday.
You did. I did not. I
did.
Called for Ohio State to win that game.
But that head-to-head, they put them above, rightfully so. But I'll be honest, as a fan of Alabama, the way they've played the last 3 weeks, I was totally surprised this morning.
Well, and okay, so definitely from last night's game, a lot of feelings were felt, and especially how Alabama played versus, and then comparing how they played to the resume of Notre Dame and Miami. And obviously the committee has come out, they've come out and said, hey, this was not, that was not a part of the criteria. Look, you got to understand this is a rewarded game, and they stuck by that metric and said they're not going to punish teams. Now the BYU situation is different. Okay. They're playing in the Big 12. Okay. The third strongest conference in the country as of right now. Okay. They value that different than the Big 12, than the Big 10 and the SEC. At the same time, the difference between those, Alabama, Georgia played in the regular season. Alabama won. Okay. BYU got dismantled by Texas Tech.
And they got beat in the regular season.
And they got beat. Yes. Okay. So you're looking at 2 dismantling losses BYU had versus Texas Tech. Alabama and Georgia split their season series in this remark 1-1. I get it. Alabama did not play a great game yesterday. I was calling for Ty to come out. I was calling for all kinds of stuff to happen, and it was completely Bama's fault. It was not officiating fault.
No,
okay. Nothing like that. This was a game that Kalen DeBoer got outcoached by Kirby Smart, and Ty Simpson had zero confidence in himself.
Throwing the ball downfield. I mean, you can sit there and think about a couple of those passes, and we were going for it on fourth down. There was one series very specifically where we needed to get 2 yards, and I think the decision had already been made that we're going for it on fourth down. I think it was 21-7. We had the ball. We needed to score, and we throw the ball 2 times in a row. Okay.
Top of the ball that went out of bounds.
Yeah. And it's like, are you kidding me? We don't run the ball one time in that whole scenario. If we know we're going for it on fourth down, we can't get 1.5 yards to 2 yards because it was a short 2-yard gain. But the people that I feel bad about this, we'll sit there and make this comparison with Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama all day long. I feel bad for the Notre Dame fans this morning. I grew up in Kentucky, a lot of Notre Dame fans in Kentucky. You just kind of gravitate north there from a football perspective. My phone's already been blowing up a little bit this morning because of that. But you look at what they've done over the last 10 weeks, winning those 10 games in a row. But then I also look at it like this. They did it to themselves. Yeah. They have not played ball in 2 weeks. All right. So they've been watching all of this unfold. And that's what happens when you make the decision to stay independent, Okay, you don't get to play in the conference championship games, and there's nobody else. They've dropped back the last two selection shows. They've come back. They've lost spaces on the last two selection shows. They weren't playing ball,
and that's what
everybody else was playing.
Well, and you have to, again, I've been saying this throughout the last couple of weeks. Notre Dame is outweighing the risks versus the reward of actually joining a conference for the college football playoff. And I think the one thing comes down to, for Notre Dame, they have to schedule harder games. Okay, they have to go look towards the SEC, the ACC. Well, they already have the games of the ACC, but the Big 10, the Big 12, schedule 2 of those games from each conference. Okay, Notre Dame has to do something where they can show off the resume so they can sit on the couch and wait for the decision to come out from the committee on Selection Sunday. Okay, Notre Dame didn't do that this year. Okay. And looking towards the future, if they don't do that and they don't join a conference, you're going to receive this heartbreak every couple of years, because that's just what the calendar lines up to. It's everything we talk about in college football. Okay. Notre Dame's got to change something. Okay. Pops, I know your favorite saying is, what's the definition of insanity?
It's doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
I learned that growing up 1,000 times in the back of my ear.
And this seems to follow Notre Dame every year.
It does. Okay. We're going to keep looking at this and looking at this. Obviously, Bama was almost on the other side of that this year. Okay.
We were the first team left out last year.
Are we 14 points? Or how many points Bama have last night? They had one touchdown.
7 points.
7 points last night. Were we 7 points away from not making the CFP? Quite possibly. They could have looked at the game different. But as of right now, what we know is they didn't drop, or they didn't really hold those games into account the weight that a lot of people thought they would.
Well, if you look at strength of schedule, you look at strength of record, Bama was dominant above Miami and Notre Dame in that category, right? And you really look at the middle of the season as to what Bama did, okay? Now, everybody's going to say, what about the eye test? What if the eye test? Notre Dame played 10 good weeks of football.
They did, yeah.
Okay, but they were also 0-2 at one point. If you would have said, hey, what about Notre Dame in the eye test? Well, they look terrible. They got 2 losses. They've won 10 straight. I get it. Trust me, I've been on the other side of this where we're, as a fan, we're sitting there going, man, what the heck happened? How is my team not in it? If Notre Dame wants to point fingers, it shouldn't be at Alabama or should it be at Miami. It should be on putting Tulane and James Madison in this thing when there's one Power 4 win amongst those two teams.
I mean, so we're kind of still stomaching, what took place and how they rank these teams. Okay. At the end of the day, I know, Pops, you were having a disagreement of you did not like, and this has kind of come forth in the last couple of weeks because of how you saw this game was going to be ranked and how you saw that the 3 Power 5, or excuse me, the 3 conference champions you were okay with, right? You're good with them, okay? And when you learned, what could happen with the ACC doomsday scenario, you were not for, the Tulanes of the world, the James Madisons of the world, because of their strength of schedule, strength of record.
They don't play anybody. Now they get they get to play Oregon and Ole Miss, okay? And those two teams, I'll eat my words, and I'll be the first to admit it. If those teams walk in and give a competitive game, I'll come back to you guys and say, hey, you know what? James Madison played great. Tulane played great. But my opinion, though Oregon and Ole Miss both get home games, and these two lower conference Power 5, they got one win. Again, I'll say it again. They got one win amongst the two teams against Power 4 schools, okay? They're going to get destroyed at Oregon and at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a point where I do agree with that. I understand the criteria and the situation that the committee was put in because those teams got in over Notre Dame and BYU, which is shocking to both those fan bases. Did BYU deserve to be in the college football playoff? No. Did Notre Dame deserve to be in the college football playoff? No. But when I'm thinking that, I'm also thinking because everybody wants to go down the line of when are they, when do we stop the amount of teams from getting into the playoffs? What line are we going to stop at? We expanded from 4. Now we're at 12. Do we go to 16? Do we go to 24? Every question's going to get asked, okay? Because everybody wants to say, okay, well, they need to let in more teams. These teams deserve it. No, they don't. Past 8, I don't know if you're deserving of winning a national championship.
I think that's the key point there. You get to a point where you're top 10. Can a team make a run? Any team can make a run.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about this morning. Miami could make a run. I believe they could. But
Notre Dame could make
does
a run.
their
They've made a run
resume
for the last 10 games?
Does their resume say that they can go in there and make a run? Is their resume deserving enough to get the chance to go and make a run? I think that's the question that needs to be asked going future for the college football expansion.
You know, everybody wants to talk about Notre Dame's run they've done for the last 10. Okay. You follow the data, right?
Yeah.
I think it's Carl online right now saying Notre Dame or the Irish need to join the Big Ten. I like that. I say they need to join the ACC. Okay, let's boost that conference up so you have 3 really dominant conferences, right? Yeah. Versus it being a Big Ten SEC showdown every year.
Well, the biggest issue in the ACC right now is they have the amount of teams that they have had since they've expanded the conference with teams like Cal. You are in a situation now where the talent is so spread out across the conference that from top to bottom, any team can win. I believe Cal can go into Florida State and get a victory. Okay, Duke. Obviously, putting that on terms as they beat Virginia last night.
Yeah.
Any given team can beat you on any given night. The talent is just so spread apart, and there's no layers to the conference, okay? Big Ten, okay, you have the first 4 teams up there. Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon. Who would be the 4th team? USC?
Iowa, USC.
Iowa, USC, okay?
You have both in the top 25 right now, yeah.
Exactly, right? You have tiers to that conference of how good they are. You have Maryland towards the bottom. You have Golden Gophers, Minnesota down there toward the bottom. Wisconsin, right? I mean, there's so many teams in that conference. They don't have the layer by layer to sit there and say, well, that's the team we need in the CFP.
Yeah.
The issue the ACC is having right now is they do not have top dogs. If you could work out a deal with the Notre Dame of the world.
The reality is, let's think about this, okay? If Miami would have just taken care of business, okay, and they would have played in that ACC championship and won that, that would have opened up another spot where Notre Dame would have fell into that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Miami would have still been in, Notre Dame would have still been in, Alabama would be in, and the teams that would be crying would be either Tulane or SMU. JMU, excuse me.
JMU.
SMU. But, you know, hey, on the socials, Ray says, hey, I think 16 is the way to go. And then, you know, John Paul, okay, John, I get it, you're an Auburn fan, but he says, I hope Oklahoma crushes Alabama 40-0. And then maybe people can stop favoring Alabama.
We're talking about DeBoer playing Venables for the 3rd time in 2 years. Okay, the second time around is not going in DeBoer's favor.
Nope.
Could DeBoer now be 0-3 against Oklahoma? This time going to Norman. I think this is the perfect opportunity, perfect storyline for Bama to get back on track.
You know, what's beautiful about that is, I mean, you look at this as an Alabama fan, it's like, man, look at these storylines. And you don't know if the college football playoff committee is looking at storylines or not. But one, Bama gets its revenge game. Then if they win that game, where do they go? They go to Indiana and they play SIG, you know, with the history that Sigonelli has.
With the University of Alabama.
University of Alabama and the Nick Saban coaching tree.
Here we go. We're going to talk about money-making favorites within the CFP with that storyline build up. It's the perfect opportunity.
It's gonna happen. What about the other games, Kels? What do you, when you look at that first round of games? Okay, let's reverse it here real quick.
Okay.
What do you think about the top 4? Were there any surprises and how that was ranked? And the thing that would surprise me the most is Georgia not jumping Ohio State.
Well,
with the way they beat Alabama.
And I'm with you, and I'm comfortable where Texas Tech was played out. I think, you know, out of the 4 teams, out of the 4 teams and the 4 conferences, Texas Tech, I think that's right where they deserve to be. That's right where they need to be with the power in their conference. Team,
solid win yesterday.
But we haven't really got to see them against the upper tier conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten. So I'm comfortable with their ranking. Okay, at 3, you had Georgia. The argument's going to be Ohio State, Georgia. Where do you flip them? Obviously, the head-to-head in the championship with the Big Ten. I like what the conference or the committee did there. I think they did their due diligence and how they properly rank conference championship games. Okay, I'm comfortable with what they did with BYU,
and that who's got the number 1.
Yeah, exactly. So they are the head-to-head 1-1. Indiana got on top last night for their first Big Ten championship since 1945.
That's a beautiful football game. And, I don't call football games beautiful that often, but that game was amazing. Watching that game, and then as soon as that game ended, I flipped over to the ACC championship and to watch that game go into overtime and for Duke to get that. I can't believe I was rooting for Duke, but yes, I was rooting for Duke to get the ACC championship. Okay, so you got the top four. Now let's talk about those first round games. And any surprises there? Any games that obviously stick out to you?
Sticking out wise, I'm interested how really the Oregon game. Okay, JMU, Bob Chesney, he is leaving to go to UCLA. Okay, we've got this trend going on of coaches leaving within the CFP. These group of 6 teams that are in the CFP. This trend of coaches are leaving. Yep. So the trend will be, how far in are Bob Chesney and John Sumrall in on actually winning this year? Or are they ready to go get started? They're Florida and UCLA, okay? How far are they going to be aggressive? Are they going to be conservative? What are they going to do, especially in this Oregon game where you have Oregon team that I would argue not a great strength of schedule, okay? Tulane, good group of 6 football team. Or how good are they, though, is the big question I have. Tulane and Ole Miss. John Sumrall versus a team on the opposite side of the favor with missing Lane Kiffin, who's down in Baton Rouge with LSU. You have Pete Golding heading the Ole Miss Rebels into battle there against Tulane. Home game, 2 coaches. Well, okay, it wouldn't be really 2 coaches on the way out, but Sumrall's on the way out, going to Florida. Interesting game, kind of a border war going on there between Tulane and Ole Miss. Tulane, a former SEC school way back in the day. There's a lot of interesting factors that could go to this. Obviously, Carson Beck going into the 12th man playing A&M. The storylines are set up for this. This is a college football play-up matchup made in heaven, and we're going to be taking care of for the next couple of months watching football and seeing how this playoff works out. And I think this year we went to a positive direction with how the rankings were done. Instead of having the 4 highest conference championship getting those automatic qualifiers through 1 through 4, because we were sitting here right now, Ohio State would be ranked at 5. If this was last year, Ohio State would be at 5, Tulane would be at 2.
Well, when I look at that first round, I sit there and think that the both the 7 and 8 ranked games are way better than the 5 and 6. That 7 spot, you got A&M playing home of the 12th man, and Miami gets to go into that stadium, which is loud. It's crazy. There's artillery going off every time a big play happens in that stadium. You got home of the 12th man, and Miami gets to go in and really, really have to deal with the ruckus that goes on there.
Riley Sutherland hitting us up on YouTube. You can hit us up on the socials too. Just leave us a comment here on YouTube. Bama is the only team since 2014 to lose their conference championship and not drop at least 1 spot. I think it shows you the different metrics the committee is taking and trying to get this stuff right. I mean, we've seen how they use this stuff in the past. It's not, it's never perfect. I think this year was, barring Notre Dame fans and BYU fans, obviously they're going to be a little disgruntled from this, but I think we saw a little bit of a more straightforward approach, and they really stuck to what they had been preaching these last couple of weeks. We finally got the strength of schedule finalized. They put that into their metrics. Okay. We saw that happen. Then we saw how the head-to-head took care of the Miami Notre Dame situation. Okay. The conference championships, they viewed them differently. They viewed them way differently than the AP. I think we saw Kirk talking about that on the selection show, on how they're going to rank these games. And I think they did it correctly. I think they had no issues with it. Obviously, Bama in any other world, I would have been fine with them dropping to 10 with their metric, okay?
Yeah.
I think it would have been fine because of how they played last night. It was the worst possible outcome for the Crimson Tide on how they played in that game yesterday, and they still didn't drop a spot. So we're really seeing how the committee is going to rank these teams going forward into this new era of the playoffs, of really the playoff completely, and if they move up to 16 teams, something like that, we're going to see how it's viewed differently and how the committee is going forward in the future.
So you look back at the socials on YouTube, Richie Jones,
co-host
Richie's
Richie.
enjoying his time in the mountains. Is not with us this morning. But Richie says it's the last year of the 12-team playoff.
Well, so that has been extended. I think moving forward, they have until sometime in January to figure out if they want to move forward with this current structure or if we're going to move to something else in the future. Yeah. So we're waiting on that one to see what's going to come out of that. Obviously, we'll react to that when that comes out.
So, Kels, let's look at the quarterfinal games. I think that first round, you probably got Oregon beating JMU, which would mean Oregon playing Texas Tech. Dang good football game.
Yeah.
Being the fan that I am, I'm going to say Bama gets its revenge. They go in and beat Oklahoma. Then we get the SIG matchup with Indiana. Tulane, Ole Miss, come on. Ole Miss is going to crush them at home in Oxford. The Grove is going to go be crazy. It's going to be a great tailgating first-round playoff home game. And then, but the best part about that is you got an awesome rematch with Ole Miss and Georgia. And then I think the toss-up game is who plays Ohio State in that second round. Miami, A&M. I'll go A&M, and then you get A&M and Ohio State. That second round is set up to be some amazing college football.
I'm with you. I think, the outcome that we received this year was so favorable, and I'm happy that it happened the way it did. As I'm struggling to pull up the seating here, do not know why, or else I could actually give a better formidable answer than I currently have. But I think going into the second round, like we talked about the Alabama-Indiana matchup is, man, our Wi-Fi is crawling out here trying to get this pulled up. Moving forward with the show here. So trying to figure this out. Pops, break this down a little more while I get this pulled up.
So what do you need me to talk about? So let's talk about those matchups. Yeah. I'm going to go to the SIG and Indiana matchup. What really struck me, when you stereotype Indiana football, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking of cornbread fed, big front line, and that's exactly what they have. Last night watching a Ohio State game was the first time I think I'd really looked at Mendoza and how goofy he is and how he throws the football down the field. Okay, but you look at that offensive line and you're thinking, man, look at these boys.
I mean, if they're, I talked about the history when Pops brought that up earlier. I talked about the history with Cignetti and where he has been at and how he's, formidable, his relationship and where he has come from, and his opportunity that he took when leaving Alabama during Alabama's prime years to go coach a D2 football game and football team and work his way up to James Madison and eventually taking that job at Indiana. So one of the best things in college football, and my favorite thing of one of the traditions that has taken place under Cignetti at Indiana is the student sections lighting up cigarettes for Cignetti. I think it's hilarious. I think it's great. But back to the college football playoff and what we're going to see in the second round, possibly, what we could see. We talked about Alabama-Indiana matchup. Oklahoma, if they were to win that game going into Indiana, we're talking about a John Mateer that has had even more time, weeks off, to recover from his thumb injury. I do not think we're ever going to see the John Mateer we thought we were going to get, Heisman Mateer, at the beginning of the season, and he was working toward that until that injury. I don't think we're going to get that. But this strong defense going on the road, playing, well, actually, it's not really on the road, but it's in a bowl game against a neutral site against an Indiana team with a star quarterback that's riding high with Mendoza, likely a Heisman favorite right now. We're going to get to see defense on defense crime there. Both of those teams very good at defense.
So you're saying whether it's Oklahoma or Alabama, you're going to Mendoza's going to get to face a solid defense.
100%.
Better than the defense at Ohio State?
No, I mean, okay, so there's ways to view this, and the problem was is Ohio State, is I'm going to keep hitting back to that. Caleb Downs has said it publicly that Ohio State team is not playing a good team week in and week out. They've had time to recover. Okay, there's a difference now. You want to go, you're going to either way have to play an SEC defense in this next coming game. It's going to be different than a Big Ten defense. Completely different on how it's done. So the other games as well, Texas Tech either playing Oregon or James Madison. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Let's say Oregon gets this win, okay?
At home.
Exactly, right? Okay. with this team and how they played with Dante Moore, solid quarterback. The defense has been good under Tosh Lapoy. I don't think Texas Tech can up there with Oregon. I do not think, barring we're going to see how Oregon plays against James Madison. Texas Tech instilled their dominance against BYU, okay? Playing a defense led by Jacob Rodriguez, a Heisman candidate. I just don't think in a world I would put Texas Tech in favor in that game against Oregon. Looking to the other side of the bracket, A&M Miami in the 12th man. Carson Beck is going to face a great defense. Again, I'm talking about teams with great defenses in this playoff. Carson Beck, I've seen the guy throw pick after pick after pick. I've seen a Texas A&M defense absolutely dominance, and they get to play at home. DJ Reed, phenomenal year. Okay, a guy that should have been in the Heisman race much earlier on. A&M is going to be a tough team to beat at home for Miami. So we're looking then at a Texas A&M Ohio State team. This may be one of the best matchups we see in the whole college football playoff.
Hi, Richie, you're on. What you got to say about all this?
I did not think we hear Richie on this side.
Yeah, Richie, that's the biggest problem we got right now.
Yeah.
Buddy, I'm going to drop you, man. We tried. We haven't got this down where we're letting people join us.
We have not. We're still working on that. Richie, we'll try one more time. You hear us?
Hey, Richie, speak up.
I don't think Richie can hear us now is the issue.
All good. All right, Kels. As you're saying, man.
Thought you would have flipped the camera back.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
So, like I was saying, back to my screen here. And Texas A&M Ohio State, I think it's going to be one of the best games we see in this college playoff football. And I think, barring the Miami going into the 12th man and putting up a game against Texas A&M, I hope we're not robbed of the Texas A&M Ohio State matchup because I do think it'll be one of the best of the year. Moving on to Ole Miss and Tulane, this one probably the closest game I think we could see, especially seeing a group of 16 Tulane coming in and playing in Oxford. Is it going to be intimidating? What's it going to do to the team? I think Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss is going to be on. I think there's some instability there that opens the door for Tulane, but I just don't know how much it opens the door for Tulane. And can Pete Golding keep that team together with the factor that they are playing at home in that game? And then if it goes the way I think it's going to go, Georgia, Ole Miss rematch minus Lane Kiffin, which could be a phenomenal game in that regard. So we'll see moving forward how these first round games are going to go. We're still deciding on how we're going to do our show that weekend in the first round because we have places we have to be on that Saturday, Christmas involved things for that Saturday. What are we going to do with that game? Oklahoma and Alabama, we had discussed pre-recording it. I don't think that's a possibility now, knowing the juncture and what times and days these games are going to be played. So we will figure that out going forward. Pops, we having issues with the camera?
Yeah, we're having issues. That's my fault.
We're going to get this fixed momentarily, guys, and come back in 1 sec.
Don't do it yet. Muted.
All right. Apologies, guys. We're having some issues with the camera layout, trying to figure that all out. I don't know how we're going to move forward with this. We've lost Pops' camera in this process.
It's all good, man.
Trying to get it back on. But okay, so we're really reeling in of how these second round could play out in the playoffs and trying to really simulate how the first round could go and what the favorable places to what the favorabilities are going to be of each team and moving forward and what we could do with this. So looking toward the comment sections are going crazy, guys. We want to thank you for that. Thank you for engaging with the show. Remember to like, subscribe, set that bell notification up so you know when we are going live over air. We have been on longer than we anticipated to. So I think we're going to take the last 5-10 minutes, wrap this thing up going forward. I think my main takeaway from this is that the College Football Playoff Committee actually got it right for once. I understand disgruntled BYU fans, disgruntled Notre Dame fans, especially Notre Dame fans. But I think moving forward, setting the criteria up and what we're going to get moving forward in the College Football Playoff, this was the correct decision. John Paul, national championship team will be Indiana, I think is a stretch far along. I still want to see Indiana against teams that are not in the Big Ten to really evaluate them.
Yeah.
I haven't got that yet. We're finally going to get that no matter what. We will see Indiana play either Alabama or Oklahoma.
I don't think there's any, we talked about those two defenses of both Oklahoma and Alabama. I will say this, though, with this time off gives Alabama a chance to get healthy. We'll see what happens with Overton. He was out with an illness this week. So our one of our starting guys on the defensive line was not in the game last night. No excuses. Georgia still handled it. But the defense that played all year minus 2 losses needs to show up.
Yeah. Alabama has really flipped on a dime in somewhere short of ways. And I think Ty Simpson, I would put the point, he has lost his confidence completely. Not only the deep ball, short passes looked horrible yesterday. The confidence is just not there for that team. I think without Jam Miller, it's really had an issue yesterday because Hill was just not catching those passes out of the backfield. Bailey hitting us up on YouTube. JMU is getting beat by 40. I can see that possibility. I think we could also see the possibility that the group of 6 teams do not deserve to be in the playoff at all, that it should have been BYU and Notre Dame. But how the criteria is set up, that's what we get. And I understand it how we get. There's really no way a group of 6 conferences are going to sit there and push for a new playoff if they don't get in. The cat's already out of the bag in sort of ways. We're not going to move backward in that regard. But I think, like I said, I think that Alabama, their defense didn't play great yesterday. Without LT Overton, put some issues in. Keon Keeley wasn't in the game like I expected him to. Yep. I would question some of DeBoer's coaching methods in this game on how he went forward. I also made the call. I said we should have put in Russell or Mack at some point in the game. Pop brought up the point this morning that it may have sent a message to the committee
that we don't know who our quarterback is.
But
that would have been that decision the committee makes, without a player, et cetera, et cetera. And I have no issues at all with Keelan or Austin Mack, but not in your championship game when you're already down by 21 points. Okay, you stick with your quarterback. You see what he does. You see how he faces adversity, and you continue playing. And I think that's what the board did last night. It was the worst showing by far of Ty Simpson. Okay, as a buddy of mine from Kentucky called me last night after the game. Shout out to Jamie Nace. Says, "Hey man, we needed some of that younger Simpson love. You know, his little brother threw for 500 plus yards in their state championship game or whatever. Ty Simpson's little brother did, but you know, Ty last night was just off. I mean, he was throwing balls out of bounds. He was keeping the ball when he should have thrown it out of bounds. Okay. I think that was one of the things I was so impressed with Mendoza last night, watching that game. He's scrambling back there, but has enough composure in mind. Wait a second, just launch this football into the second row of the stands instead of taking a sack like Simpson continued to do last night.
There was issues in the Alabama-Georgia game that have really all accounts from Alabama. You couldn't get the short pass going. You definitely couldn't get the long pass going. I think you had 3 completions over 20 yards.
You know, most of those were run yards after the catch.
Third down, horrible for Alabama, offensively and defensively. Terrible. You couldn't stop Gunnar Stockton when running that option play through the middle. It was nowhere to be stopped. Roderick Robertson blew through Alabama's defense. I know he had at least 1 touchdown in the game. Roderick Robertson, they needed a 2 yards on third down right there for Georgia. All you had to do was give the ball to Roderick Robertson. There was no stopping him. So Alabama definitely issues throughout the game last night, and they need to be addressed moving forward, or you could see potentially another Oklahoma win in the college football playoff in the first round. All right, Pops. I know we had said we were only going to go for a couple minutes here.
We were going to go 15 minutes. And
had camera issues, got talking.
Tried bringing Richie in, and it just nothing that you did wrong, Richie.
No, yeah.
There's more technical stuff. We got to figure that out if we're going to bring people in. And I tried doing it mid-show thinking it would work. So apologize that technical issues once again are on the old man. But hey, Kels, great show. I think it's time to hop out this show.
Yeah.
As a fan, I'm excited, but I'm also a realist. Okay. You know, as a Bama fan, you know, I'd love to see Bama go in and just pounce Oklahoma. Maybe we'll see what happens.
Well, you know? I would bring back to the point of the history for Alabama when playing the same team twice in 1 year. Usually it's a 50-50 split. And we saw that yesterday with Georgia and Oklahoma. This would be the second time playing them this year. Could we see a 50-50 split? I think that's the question mark.
You know, I think last night, one of the things I said to you, I was like, man, and just like that, season's over.
Yeah.
Well, one playoff committee just extended our season by a couple of weeks. So just like that, Bama fans get to continue cheering and saying Roll Tide.
Guys, thank you. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll be back Wednesday. Make sure right here on YouTube for the midweek update, discussing this in a little more depth and going down through some scenarios of what we could see in the college football playoff that's coming up here in just a short couple of weeks. Of course, next week we have the Army-Navy game. We will be live Saturday morning from 9 to 11 on 7:30 a.m., 103.9 FM, Jocks, Huntsville. And you can find us right here on YouTube as well for the first hour. Also, find us on iHeart. If you're not in the car, just find us on iHeart right there. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. And, you know, we're trying to grow this thing, guys. And we really appreciate all the comments, all the love, all the interaction that we are getting. But until then, this has been Off the Bench, the Off the Bench College Football Show. We will see you guys next week.